And Amy, Cory Booker, he's a senator from New Jersey. You ever see the documentary Street Fight? Check it out. Cory Booker is intolerable now. But when he first came back to Newark from Stanford, it was kind of interesting. Sort of like
He's my hero.
next
He was
gen.
like a superhero.
Well-
He'd save people from burning buildings and all that.
Well, okay. Well, this is more recently, and I don't
If
know.
anybody has listened to the show over the years, I've always called him a superhero.
Yeah. Well, Cory Booker, when he came back, it's supposed to represent a sort of a clean break from, well, I mean, let me just say it, the poverty pimp, black politician of the Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and in Newark, Sharp James, Variety, Sharp James, who ultimately went to jail. Newark, or the documentary Street Fight, is his first run for mayor against Sharp James, this sort of institutional politician there, corrupt. He loses that. It's really well done. He loses that race, and he goes on to beat Sharp James the next time around, and that launched his political career. But now Cory Booker in some respects, is even worse than those guys because he knows better. But this is the space he has to occupy to be relevant in the modern Democrat Party. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I apologize to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat Socialist Party. So listen to him standing next to another Democratic socialist, Elizabeth Warren, yesterday, talking about Judge Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we need that.
We need that theme music, yeah.
Please. Stat.
And the Dems' desperation to try and whip up interest in stopping his nomination, which they're having a very difficult time doing. But listen to Cory Booker.
There is so much at stake here that has nothing to do with politics. This is to do with who we are as moral beings. And so I want to call on everybody. I'm not here to tell folk just what they should know. I'm here to call on folk to understand that in the moral moment, there is no neutral. In a moral moment, there is no bystanders. You are either complicit in the evil, you are either contributing to the wrong, or you are fighting against it.
So if you support the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, much less vote for it as a United States Senator, you are complicit in evil. Strong statement, I'd say. For more on this topic and a few others, we're pleased to be joined again by Noah Rothman, Associate Editor for Commentary Magazine. Noah has written a piece about the New Left and who they're coming for. It's complicit in evil. I think you start to get an indication. Noah, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Do we have Noah?
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Hey.
All right. Hey, Noah. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Sorry about that. That was on my end.
No problem.
I actually haven't seen the documentary that you mentioned, but there's another one that I have seen about Cory Booker as superhero premise, Brick City, which is a fantastic documentary about the revitalization of Newark and Cory Booker. As you said, this big break from the very corrupt, institutionalized African-American political machine that dominated Newark for so long. And it really wasn't, it was hagiographical, but it wasn't nonsense. It wasn't a lie. I mean, the guy was actually the real deal. I grew up in New Jersey, born and raised, and followed his career. And a lot of the people I knew, even centrist Republicans were like, the guy's the real deal. It could, sort of be the new Bill Clinton triangulating Democratic Leadership Council kind of centrist liberal.
Well, right, and remember,
that could move this party back from the left.
And remember, at the outset, he was also going to be part of the education innovation cadre of new politicians in urban centers. He was open to school choice. He was open to charter schools. And then once he started climbing up the political ladder, he had to walk all that back in and genuflect before the teachers' unions.
Yeah, and he had his fair share of scandals. I don't think you can govern a city like Newark and not. But he was a change from the overt corruption that was endemic in that city for so long and has returned. But what we've seen of Cory Booker since is a very skilled and capable politician, and that is what you played. You played a very skilled and capable politician. It's kind of nauseating because it's so theatrical and scene-chewing, but he has his finger on the pulse of what the Democratic base wants. They want to see projection and passion and uncompromising, absurd assessments of the state of the union. And Cory Booker is delivering.
Well, clearly he's trying to please his base, but isn't his end game is to one day be president of the United States?
Of course. And, I think he's doing a pretty good job of it. Democrats want to see passion, even at the expense of their own position. That's why they filibustered Neil Gorsuch, knowing that he had the votes, knowing that it would result in the curtailment of the privileges enjoyed by the Senate minority. They cut off their own nose there, but that is what the base demanded of them. That's why they shut down the government in January toward no discernible end. It's just what the base wanted of them. And then they had to perform this sort of ignominious retreat, and a tactical retreat. They had no choice, and declare sue for peace and declare victory. And that's what the base demanded of them. They got nothing out of these deals, but they just wanted to see some sort of behavior. The base really does want to see performative displays, not so much positioning their members for the next election, but just demonstrating the kind of passion and the kind of anxiety that they feel.
Your recent column that I mentioned, The New Left, is coming for you. When are they coming for me, and how should I prepare?
I don't know if you can prepare. You can prepare by simply not giving an inch, I don't think. What we've seen, sort of, especially in the entertainment sphere, and people in that venue, the activist left, not necessarily the political left, but the grassroots, as we've been talking about, is again displays of passion and displays of orthodoxy. They don't want to see any sort of compromise, particularly on a philosophical level. So when you see this, remember early on in the Trump era, there was this sort of attempt, and I don't think it was 100% genuine, but there was a sort of an effort to say, we need to get outside our bubble. We need to reconnect with the country that apparently makes up at least a plurality of it enough to win presidential elections, but nobody knew about, nobody saw it coming, so we need to open ourselves up to that. There was a base of the Democratic Party that resented that, because they never thought that part of the country deserved a hearing. And they are becoming more ascendant and more forceful in their efforts to prevent that. So when you see people like Mark Duplass, who is an actor, a left-wing actor, by the way, say a kind word about Ben Shapiro, it sets off this whole cascading series of events that eventually resulted in a very successful director, James Gunn, the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, being removed from his position because he said a kind word about Mark Duplass, and then the activist left, or the activist right, rather, actually, goes into his background and tries to find all these off-color jokes that he made on Twitter and demands that the left enforce their own rules. Now, the idea behind that was that they wouldn't, that they would be duplicitous. But they're not, and they're happy to enforce their own rules against their own because James Gunn had violated the precepts that they believe are the most valuable at this moment, which is to never give the right an inch, never to entertain the option that people on the right who are effective, like Ben Shapiro, are in the mainstream. So if that means getting rid of their own, even if they're super successful, even if they make Disney and ABC millions and millions of dollars, it is necessary to get rid of them.
Well, then, so does the conservatives and all conservative office holders need to be similarly unyielding? And I'll level up an example: Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan moving on Rod Rosenstein, authoring the articles of impeachment for Rod Rosenstein and continuing to prosecute their case against the perception of a rigged witch hunt, to borrow a phrase, at Justice and FBI against the Trump administration.
Right, but you got to the heart of it right there, because they're not saying that. They're not saying that we're going after the rigged witch hunt.
That's right.
This is supposedly about Rod Rosenstein's withholding of documents from the House that they've requested, which they said, by the way, the Department of Justice has said, you will never receive. And it is their prerogative. This is the executive branch. This is the President of the United States. Donald Trump's DOJ has the privilege to withhold from the House and to make sure that they never go public whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
They can have execute executive privilege in that fashion. In fact, Eric Holder did precisely the same thing, and the Republican-led House held him in contempt. They never tried to impeach him. This is going a major step further, and it's definitely a calculated and performative display, and one that is completely unjustified in my view, but it is nevertheless of value to the base that they are playing for.
Right, and this comes on the heels of some things that particularly the House has done that has not exactly whipped the base into a frenzy for the midterms, like the omnibus spending bill, and also just the experience, some of the antagonism towards Trump intra-party, but also the experience of, nobody ever really got held accountable. Not really. Nobody ever got held accountable with the IRS abuses. And there was a lot of talk during the Obama years, House Republicans sending letters and this and that. And Koskinen and Lois Lerner walked away scot-free after violating people's constitutional rights with the most weaponized non-military agency in the federal government. And so, you can see why there would be a demand for some performance in furtherance of the rhetorical position you say you're taking.
Sure, and that is the mirror image of what Cory Booker is playing to, the sentiment that he is whipping up and appealing to, and I don't think it's especially healthy. Look, one of the major agenda items on Paul Ryan's agenda when the Republicans began this Congress with Donald Trump as president was IRS reform.
Yeah.
It was a big package reform and scaling back of, as you said, what is the most effective police institution that is not a police institution in the government. And they never got to it. They never got around to it for a lot of reasons. I think once we, there's the presumption on the part of the activist base on the right is that, there really is no democratic way of forming. I don't see that in the numbers. It looks like there's a fund between fundraising and candidate performance and off year and special elections. Democrats are winning across the board. It doesn't look good in November. And when we come back and look back on this era and the opportunities that we missed, I think there's going to be a lot of wet eyes in the House among conservatives about the opportunities that they had and they whiffed on.
He is Noah Rothman, associate editor for Commentary Magazine. Check out his latest piece. The New Left is coming for you. Noah, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer